analysis. And to help keep you awake, so it's not just us talking to you about abstract ideas, we'll dive into some practical demonstrations as well, using the free and easy to use Microsoft Power BI. So if you're used to using Excel to look at your data, then you're in for a real treat in terms of what else is possible. Nothing wrong with Excel, it just only goes so far. This is what we're going to cover. Okay, so key concepts, the benefits for you, the tools you can use, and how you can use that to do some decision making. And some of those tools are built in. Okay, so what is data analysis? So data analysis has three main stages. Number one, cleaning, and Skye's going to talk a lot more about that in detail later on. But basically, your data has to be good quality to get the right information out with no errors, consistent formatting, nothing missing, and of course, up to date. The second stage is around modeling. And this is probably the most complicated and technical part of data analysis, and it's the bit that a lot of people overlook, and it's really important to get right. You've got to have a good structure to your data. Unstructured data is useless. You can have duplicated data in there, and it's not linked together properly. So proper modeling creates the tables and relationships between those tables. That means you can do meaningful and accurate analysis. And finally, the fun bit that everybody likes to jump to straight away is visualizing the data, making the graphs, doing the charts from like a pie chart through to an interactive net and everything in between that actually helps you gain insights into what your data is actually trying to tell you. A data analyst is a person with the skills to do those jobs. You might have a dedicated data analyst if you're that kind of size, or you might have somebody whose side hustle, if you like, within the business is also looking after the data and producing reports and doing some work on that. And they really help by identifying where you might be wasting time collecting data you don't need, where you've got gaps and you're not collecting data you should be. And as we've said before around the modeling, they'll help you link together the data. So you can previously unseen trends might be able to be visualized that you'd never noticed before. So without further ado, while we're talking about data analysts, I'll hand you over to our resident data analyst to show you some of the benefits of data analysis and some practical examples. So Skye, what are the different types of data analysis?
Okay, so fingers crossed this works first time. Can everyone see my screen? It kind of looks very similar.
Yes.
Okay, cool. So there are 5 different types that we use as, different types of data analysis. People will argue that there's more than 5, and people will also argue that there's only 4 and that there's less, and that some of them are too similar to separate. So what we use, or what we understand, are descriptive, diagnostic, predictive, prescriptive, and cognitive. So I'm just going to go over, kind of what they are, what they mean, and the very small differences between them. So descriptive will help you answer questions about what has happened based on your previous data. So it's a really important first step to actually look at the data you've got currently, and you look back at the historical outliers or look for anomalies or anything like that within the data that you have itself. You have diagnostic data, which is where you look at your data and you ask, why did this happen? Why did this event happen? And it's doing a deep dive to look for valuable insights. And it's normally an initial step that a company will take, because it's a far simpler process to follow. You look at your data and you ask, why have we got less sales in January, for example? You have predictive analysis, which helps you answer questions that will happen in the future. So you use the data that you have at the moment and you can predict what will happen. So for example, you can use techniques such as data mining. You can use modeling, machine learning, everyone's favorite word, AI. You can use all of that to help predict the future. You've got prescriptive, which will help you answer questions about what actions you should take to achieve a certain goal. So, goal setting, KPIs, all that good stuff that everyone really wants to know, you know, how do I get to point B when I'm at point A? And using a prescriptive analysis, you can actually work through step by step. Okay, so I need to go from A to B to C to get to Z. And it will help you answer them questions. And cognitive is almost an amalgamation of quite a few of them. So you attempt to draw inferences from existing data. It helps you highlight patterns and derive conclusions from that knowledge that you were looking at. Again, you would use things such as machine learning, and you would figure out how to get smarter and become more effective over time by learning from what data you have and how other people interact with that data. So it can be a really, really powerful tool to not just rely on someone to be looking at your data and just have one person, but have maybe a group of people, or have a person and technology working together to create the best output and to look best into your data. So there is what we like to call like a 6-step process of data analysis. The first 3 steps are usually based on what do you want and how do I get there? So the first step, you need to decide what you want to analyze and how to measure it. The amount of times that we've gone, or someone's come to us and they've gone, hey, I want this report based on this database. And you go to them and you go, okay, cool, what do you want to see? And they go, I'll get back to you. I'll go talk to my team. Because they've come to you, they just want the output. They don't know what the output is what they want it to say, or what they want to get out of it. After you've understood and you've got almost a bullet point list of what you want to see, then you have to go and collect the data that will allow you to get them requirements, to get that output. You know, so if you want to see how many sales, do you necessarily need to see, you know, where that person lives who bought that product? Not necessarily. So it's narrowing down your data and actually figuring out what you need to achieve your goal. And lastly, for this little 3-step section, you need to be able to clean your data. Some of it might contain nulls or errors or duplicate records. We'll go more over this step a little bit later on, but this is a really, really important step, because your report is only as good as the data you give it. So your report can only show what the data underneath it is. If you've got, you know, loads of nulls and loads of gaps, your report won't necessarily reflect the actual state of the company or the amount of orders that you have, because some orders don't have an ID, for example. You've got the last 3 steps, which is more manipulating and the output, which is what people normally think of when they actually ask for a report. They normally think of step 6 and they forget about step 1 through 5. So step 4, you manipulate your data. You've got your data. Is it in different areas? You know, is one in an Excel spreadsheet and one is, you know, somewhere in your internal finance system? You need to be able to go in and manipulate it, you know, pivot tables or anything like that you might need to do so that you can best get out what you need from your report and your data. You've then got step 5. So you have this beautiful data set. What then do you do with it? Is some data best visualized in a table and others in a bar graph or a pie chart? You need to be able to communicate and express your data in the best way that allows people to understand it. And lastly, this is everyone's favorite step, because this is what they get from it. This is what the end user, whether it's, you know, yourself or whether it's someone else in your team that you're making this report for, the last person to get that report, that is what they want. When they came to you and said, I want this report, this is what they mean. So most people, again, skip step 1 to 5 and they just want the report. They want it, you know, all looking all pretty and everything standing out and all color coded and everything like that. But they don't want to put the extra steps in before that. So step 6 is everyone's favorite. It's actually visualizing your data and turning it into the pie charts and the bar graphs and the actual report that people get to see. As I mentioned in step 3, a really, really important part of your data is how clean it is, the hygiene of your data. You have so many steps that you might not even know that you go through because it's under validation or anything like that within your system. So for example, if you fill out a form and you've got mandatory columns that you need to fill in, for example, name or who that form is regarding, that data is mandatory filled out so that you don't get nulls and blanks and so that everything links together. You want to be able to flag things as duplicates and maybe delete them because you don't actually need two of the same row. You want to be sure that your table structure is correct and you don't just have everything put everywhere because that's just the way it was when we got it. Some people will do a trial run with this, so they'll take a small subset of your data and then we'll change it and say, oh, we can't do that manipulation to that date column because someone's put it in as an American format. You know, sometimes you have columns on a form that don't say you have to enter it in day, day, month, month, year, year. Some of them, you know, someone might fill it out and they fill it out in the American format, and some might fill it out in the European format, and that will clash and ruin your data because it's incorrect. So if you then go to transform it or manipulate it and model it, that it won't work because the data, you know, the machine or whatever software you're looking at will look at it and say, there's no 24th month. I don't know what to do, and we'll just bing it as an error because it's not its job to fix it. And it's smart, but it's not that smart to be able to fix things like that. So some of these tools that will help you manipulate your data and change it and help you and aid you along the way will help you, you know, look for correlations between data sets, maybe set up relationships or anything like that. And they'll help you maybe identify patterns or trends that you as a human eye couldn't see or couldn't work out. So some of the ones that you might already be aware of, some of them, you know, some of them you might not, they might be new to you. So some examples would be, you know, Excel or Tabular or SAS or Python. The one we focus with at Prosperity is Power BI. So I'm going to give you a little demo as to a little mock report that I've made up within Power BI, and it is a report based on two data sets. One of them's in Excel and one of them's on a SharePoint list that I made, and it's just kind of showing you the output of what the art of the possible is. You know, if you've got nice clean data, what can be done? And we're also going to go over some of the AI built-in functionality within Power BI, which can be really, really useful to helping you, you know, not miss things and interpret things in a different way. So in Blue Peter style, here's one I made earlier. This is the report that I made. Basically what it is, it's a really basic report that just summarizes some orders and some memberships. So this report has allowed the user, so I'm the end user, I can go in and I can filter it by month. I can filter it by year. And all of these filters and slices allow the end user to really manipulate the data to see exactly how they want. So rather than someone making a report based on, if I was to look at it from a HR perspective, or if I was to look at it from a sales perspective or a marketing perspective, I can go in and make one report and allow the user to completely manipulate it however they like. You can add as many of these filters as you want, or if that's not really, you know, your thing, for example, Power BI is really, really powerful in the sense that it's got something called drill down functionality. So for example, this visual here, if I didn't want to see all of this data and I didn't have a year filter, I can tick this little down arrow here and I can select that I only want to see in transit deliveries in 2017. And it will break it down. As you can see here, I've only got selected year and month. You can make your own order that it will break it down into. So you can now see that in the same visual, everything has been filtered around it as well, but it now breaks down. So instead of seeing year, I can see all of the months broken down. So you can see August and September were really, really quiet months. We can go in and ask the questions, why? Why were they quiet? And it really allows you to visualize what you need to see and when you need to see it. So if you don't really mind, you know, you don't care about 2017 and you want to look back at the data, you can go back and you can have a look and say, oh, we had, you know, a rather large spike of cancelled orders in June. Why? and you can then go further and ask, find out about your data, and it just helps to highlight different things. Again, you know, just different types of visuals that you can get. You can get, you know, hundreds of different visuals that you can choose from. And a really, really nice thing that Power BI does is it has built-in artificial intelligence. So it's got built-in AI. So if I double click this screen, it'll bring up a little box that will ask a question about your data. So you can go in and ask, as you would type in an email, just in natural language, you can ask your data a question, and Power BI will try its best to work that out for you. It also brings up some suggested options that Power BI has decided you might want to see this. So for example, if we wanted to see the total value of orders over a specific time, I can click on this little icon here, and Power BI will auto-generate a visual for me. If I decide, yeah, that's a really good visual, I can click on this little box here and it will bring it up for me. So if you have any documentation or anything that you need to fill out for your company as to how you've made something, you can see exactly what Power BI has done to make that visual. If I don't want it as a line chart, I can go in and I can change it. You know, I can make it a bar graph if that is easier for me to understand and the end user. So it's really, really powerful, as I've not really done much. I've double clicked and Power BI has asked, you know, what do you want to see? Ask a question. It will also, if I type in orders, it will also fill in some of the blanks for what you might want to see. And it's just a really, really overall powerful tool. So if you wanted to just see, for example, how many people are in our system, Power BI has done that. There's 184 people in our system. You can pop that out and you can change the size, the color, you know, remove the heading if you wanted, add a title, and it will allow you to completely customize everything that appears on your screen. So it really helps you to dive in and see the best of your data. There's also a subsection within Power BI called the Power BI Query Editor. This will allow you to change and manipulate your data. So you can go in here and you can see how clean your data is, or if you need to pivot any tables or columns, or if you've got a date time column that you want to split into two separate, you can split that. You can, you know, change data types. You can add your own columns if they're not necessarily in the data set to begin with. And you can completely customize all your data without affecting the Excel spreadsheet underneath or the SQL database underneath. None of that affects, none of the changes you make will be pushed down into the data set. It is solely for reporting purposes only. And that allows you to really, really manipulate and change the data as you see fit. So hopefully that has given you kind of a little oversight as to what Power BI is. And this is basically the tools we use at Prosperity, as we just find it so powerful, so useful. And it's just a bit better than, you know, an Excel spreadsheet, for example, because you get this drill down functionality. You can click on anything, anywhere, and it will drill down and filter everything for you. And it's such a powerful tool that the end user can see pretty much anything they want based on your data. On that note, I will be passing you back to Jason so that he can kind of introduce you to some other things that we might be doing.
Okay, so I'm sharing the right screen here. Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, I am. Yeah, okay. So in a few moments, we'll have time for some questions. So I can already see one in the chat, but now would be a good time to either post a few more in there or be ready to unmute and fire away at Skye. Just while you're thinking of those questions, I just want to let you know about another course that GTA are offering. So if you want to take it further from this point, then you might want to have a go with Power BI yourself, or maybe somebody back in your office would benefit from coming on a course like this. So it's a one-day practical introduction to Power BI. You can see on the screen the sorts of things it's going to cover there. It won't just be a demo, it is hands-on, it's practical, and delegates will get to build those kind of reports that Skye's just shown you there and learn how to work with data so that they can straight away go back to the office, pick up the data that you already have, and start to work with it, start to clean it up in Power BI, start to produce those interactive reports. So it's really an essential first step to using data analysis tools to get more from the data that you already have. If you've got your smartphone on you and you're interested, you can point it at that QR code up in the screen there, and it will take you off to a link to find out more. There's also a link that we've put in the chat, and we are going to share these slides with you as well. Hopefully one of my team there can post a link to this slide deck as well in the chat, and you just be able to click and sign up there as well. Okay, so a couple of good questions to start us off. So Skye, first one, is Power BI a front-end tool that hooks into databases? And if so, what databases? That's from Sean.
Okay, cool. So I can share my screen again, and I can kind of show you the extent of the connectors that Power BI has. Let me just, so hopefully everyone can see my screen here. So if I select this Get Data tab here, I can show you all of the Power BI connectors that it's got. So you have, Oracle databases, you've got SQL databases. Here's a list of all of them that you could possibly need. Access, anything. It's got hundreds of connectors that you can choose from. So yeah, it does connect to hopefully what you need. If it's on premise, there is a Power BI gateway, which is a free tool that you download, which will you put onto a server, which will allow you to connect directly to on-premise data as well. So, Power BI Desktop, which is this tool here, which is used to create your reports, is free for you to download. So you can download it and give it a try, see if you can connect your data and stuff like that. You've got online, you've got Azure, you've got the Power Platform, so data flows, Dynamics, if you use that. You can just connect it to an Excel spreadsheet, a SharePoint list, anything like that. So hopefully that answers your question. What's next? Can you produce multilingual reports? Yes, you can. You would add it as a parameter to your report. I haven't actually had the chance to make a multilingual report yet, but I do know how you would do that, for example. Yeah, all reports you can publish to SharePoint, Dynamics, intranets, anything like that. Yep, that's completely plausible. You're allowed to do that. Power BI has, because it's a Microsoft tool, if you use things like SharePoint, it has its own built-in connector. If not, you can add it as iframes and stuff like that into intranets and stuff. Can you create Power Apps too?
Yes, so you can embed a Power App within your Power BI report, or you can embed Power BI reports in your Power App. There's kind of two-way interactivity between Power Apps and Power BI.
So Power BI has some tools that you can use to help clean up your data. We also have made in the past some reports that have highlighted to people how clean their data is. So they've asked us to make a report and go in and say, tell us how much data we're missing. Tell us how, for lack of a better term, how bad our data is. Because we want to know before we go forward and, need help building a report. We want to know how we can improve our data and where's best for us to improve first. Jason, would you like to?
What is a Power App? Okay, so if you've got Office 365, then with your license, you get access to this thing called Power Apps, which is a low-code, no-code method of building custom applications that people can access through their phone. But it doesn't just have to be on a phone. It can be on a screen. You can access it through Teams, through Power BI, like we've said. And the idea is that any one of us, I'm not a developer, I'm a trainer, but I've built Power Apps in the past because it's very much it's no more difficult than Excel formula, essentially, to actually build a functioning Power App. that can interact with your existing data. It can be used for data entry, data manipulation, automation of processes, whatever you feel that you need a custom app for. So instead of going out to a third party and spending thousands on somebody else building you an app, the idea is now that to a certain extent, any of us can use those tools to build an app that we need to work with our data or to do anything else we want it to do. As I say, as part of your 365 license, if you have that, what's that one? Go on, Skye, that's one for you. 5 types of data analysis.
So with the data analysis, Power BI, as you saw, has the built-in AI functionality. There is also another few things that you can add in, such as key influencers. So if you have data that is based on certain factors, you can have and show, for example, what's the most important influence. My data is not really set up for that demo at the moment, but I think we might be able to have a look and see if we could get it. So it drags and finds what's most popular, what influences and what affects it most. So for example, if we wanted to analyze the number of orders, you can see what is more likely to be high or low. You can see whether it increases or decreases the factors. And you can then drag in to explain by or expand by. So you can have how many orders are affected by the amount of discount codes we give out. So for example, you'll find out, you know, as we give out more discount codes, we're likely to get more orders put in because it's cheaper. And Power BI, we can see if this works. You can then go in and see how it affects it. I'm not sure if this is going to play ball today. It was working before, I believe, but it might not work. But what it will do is it will bring up, like this little icon here, it will show you how much of an influence that factor has on what you're trying to analyze. So for example, in this case, it's number of orders. You can see whether location affects how many orders you get, or whether you have a sale on at that time, for example, or anything like that. And that will allow you to, you know, predict the future, for example. So you can then see, hey, if we put out more sales, we'll get more discount codes, we'll get more orders. But that will then also mean that we're getting less money because everything is discounted. And same as, you know, predicting the future and stuff like that, you can see trends within Power BI depending on how you do things. So, you know, you could see that there was, if we drill down into 2017, you can see trends and you can see dips and stuff like that. And you can ask the questions why. So with your descriptive and your prescriptive, you can then have a look and ask questions. Why did that happen? Oh, that's because we had 3 bank holidays in that month, so we were shut. That you know, you can really look into that kind of data and that kind of detail with Power BI. The date hierarchy that I've used here is quite basic. If I wanted to add more into that, you can click and drag your own, and you can also break it down further. So by default, you get year, quarter, month, and day. So you can really drill down your data and see that, wow, Q3 was really, really quiet for us. And it will just help you go through each of them steps. Hopefully that answered your question.
Okay, just while there's a lull, I think it's probably just worth introducing Michael Q, who's on the call as well. He's been very quiet. He's been lurking in there, maybe asking a few questions. As I say, he also works at Prosperity, but he's based in Guernsey, so he's your man for us there. So Michael, just want to introduce yourself and say hi so people know who you are.
Yeah, hi everyone. Yeah, I'm more in the technical solutions team. So, but yeah, certainly I'm the main point of contact in Guernsey, I guess. I work with another colleague, Rob Foden. But like I say, we tend to be the technical guys who will help you install some of your SQL servers and database servers, that sort of thing, and to help you host, collect your data. So.
Right. Okay. Is that it for questions, do we think?
Everyone's probably stunned because there's quite a lot to take in really at times, isn't there? I think it's quite a powerful tool.
Yeah, it does take a good day to kind of get your head around it on the course. So yeah. One more question. There we go.
Does it allow scheduling of tasks and reports? So when you publish a Power BI report, I believe I have one here, it will look exactly the same, and you will be able to go in and have a look at the scheduled refresh. So you control when it refreshes. You can see, you know, how many times people view it. You can go in and have a look. It'll be a live data set, so it'll be up all the time until you tell it not to, basically. I'm not sure if that answers your question in that sense, but you can, you know, schedule refreshes and stuff like that, your data.
Thanks, Adrian.
Anyone got anything else that, you know, you can ask me anything and I'll try my best to answer.
I was just going to say, actually, if people wanted to actually, you know, unmute themselves and ask as well now, that's another option because it makes it sound quiet. It actually is.
Definitely.
Hi, Skye. Do you think with Power BI, is that going to supersede SQL, or is there still, you know, there's still a world where SQL can do so much more?
I don't think it'll supersede SQL. I think you look at it from a different aspect from Power BI. So you look at it more as a, you know, a visualization tool and actually being able to drill down into your data visually, rather than SQL, you know, is more of a, you know, database holder and stuff like that. Yeah. Power BI connects on top of SQL, it connects to it. So you can, you know, you can work them both in parallel if you wanted to test them out and stuff like that. So it all really depends on personal preference, really.
Thank you.
I like the bright colors and stuff, so.
Also, you can also treat SQL as your true source of data, couldn't you? Whereas Power BI, like you say, you don't actually touch that original data source at that point. So.
That makes sense. Okay, yeah. So the underlying data, so you can let business users onto this without risk of damaging your underlying data integrity.
Exactly. So any changes that are made in Power BI will not affect the data at all.
Okay.
Underneath. So, you know, you could remove columns, copy them, duplicate them, whatever. It will not affect, for example, the data in SQL.
Right. Brilliant. Thank you.
So it's a really safe way of letting people look at data.
And I guess you could use this to collate different data sources as well. So you could have multiple sources of data to produce that single report. So like you say, you could have, you can use it for like Google Analytics, that sort of stuff as well, pulling data from that. So for your marketing, CRM, that sort of stuff. Yeah,
exactly. So you can bring in, per report, you can bring in as many of these as you want. You know, you've got Excel here, you've got, you know, SharePoint. If you use SharePoint, you've got Access databases, you've got SQL databases. Along the bottom here, you've got all your Azure stuff. There is, there you go, Google Analytics, Adobe Analytics, you've got Salesforce. You know, you've got loads of stuff and you can manipulate all them data sets together. So for example, this orders table here is just an Excel spreadsheet, and the persons table is a different data set completely that is within SharePoint, brought in, and they are connected. I think you'll be able to see here how they're connected. You know, so you can really drill down and see the real depth and detail within your data and how it all links together in a rather simple format over the top of everything as well. But I believe, so in the chat here, there's lots and lots of people won't want to work on the data cleanliness that they've got. They'll just go, just make us a report, it's fine. And you go, but the report won't be able to do this. And they go, why not? And you go, well, you don't have that data. Or you have that data, but over half of the column is empty. You know, you're only collecting it for a select few. And depending on how clean someone's data is, depends on the actual overview that you get. So for example, if I didn't have some orders that didn't have an ID, my total orders would not be 67. It could be 30. And then that's half of my orders that I'm missing out on because I don't have that data filled in. You know, if I had a form that my staff are using to fill it out, I would make them mandatory columns so that they couldn't submit the form without that. And yeah, exactly. And data bias, people could manipulate things and change it and stuff like that as well. Power BI links into CRM as well. Yeah. So, you know, it's a really, really powerful tool. And up until you want to start distributing the report itself, Power BI is free. So you can go out now and download the desktop version and just give it a try yourself and see how powerful it is and how many, you know, different pieces of information that you might not have noticed it picks up and shows you just based on, you know, you've chucked it into a graph and you've manipulated it a little bit.
Ask Skye, what do you think of the relationship between this tool and, say, the SQL Server reporting services that people may have traditionally used to extract data from in-house SQL sources? Because, you know, there is a sort of a report builder approach within that. And here we have something that's going a long way beyond it. So do you see them coexisting, or can you cannibalize what you've already done in terms of, you know, creating reports that are used within a business?
So I think the whole thought process and the whole, you know, step by step that you go through to create their reports is very similar. I just think personally, the layout for Power BI and the way and the manipulation that you can do with Power BI is, you know, personal opinion, I think is better. However, I understand that loads of people have loads of reports, you know, for example, in SQL already, and it can be quite difficult then transitioning to somewhere else. I definitely think they could come and coexist. You know, for example, if you wanted to start moving your reports across, or if you've got a really important report that you think could be better live on a SharePoint site, for example, for everyone to see, or on a SharePoint site embedded within a certain page so that directors of your company can only see it, I think Power BI is a really useful tool in that aspect.
Okay, so again, I guess if you have existing reports that you like, are you able to, as I say, reuse those in some way? Is there, or would you actually just look at the logic and start again?
I think you would look at the logic and start again. I'm not 100% sure on that. I can go away and have a look for you. But I think the underlying aspect with the Power Query editor and stuff like that you get with Power BI, I think you would have to look at the logic, maybe rethink a few things, and then try, you know, start from scratch almost within Power BI.
Good. Okay, thanks for that answer.
Has anyone else got any questions or anything like that?
Here's the thing, I think you can import your SQL reports as well, but it's not, like I say, it's not my area at all either. But Jane was saying about GDPR actually and data protection, but I think again that's based on policy and your source data. Power BI is really what you build on top, so how you manipulate data on top. So it's not your source data as such.
Yeah. Also, if you're worried about, you know, who can see your reports and stuff like that, wherever you embed it, it will, one, check their credentials, two, they can only see it if you've given them a license to see it. So for example, you can embed it within a SharePoint site that everyone's got access to, but you've put it on a SharePoint page that only certain people can see. So, you know, or you could put it on the main page that everyone on that SharePoint site can see. And you have, you know, you have the ability to narrow down who can see your reports as well. So you can share it with certain people or publish it to certain workspaces. And it is more along the lines of who do you want to see that report and who do you want to see the data underneath. So you can change, someone can maybe have this report and have access to the data set above, below it, but then anyone else who wants to create a report has to ask for permission or has to, you know, they can view it, they can view the report, but they're not allowed to see the data underneath. So you can really narrow down who sees what and stuff like that for GDPR purposes.
I guess a prime example would be you have compliance team would have access to data which you wouldn't necessarily want and audit teams you wouldn't necessarily want other people to have access to. I'd say a typical example would be sort of MLROs, that sort of thing.
Yeah, exactly. So it is, Power BI is so malleable, you can make it almost do what you want, whenever you want, for whoever you want, you know? So you can really manipulate it for however. If you really wanted to, you can add multiple pages to it. And then based on this data, people can make dashboards based off it. So they can combine, you know, multiple reports together to make a dashboard. As you can see, you know, the different colors, I've left them in so that you can see that these are from different reports and you can merge them together and have a high level overview as well.
So I guess if you're tracing a pandemic, it'd be quite useful to see the demographics, and you can actually get quite a good insight into that, couldn't you? Where the outbreak was, yeah, that sort of data would be quite useful, actually.
Yeah.
Just a trivial question, really around the presentation of the reports. If they're not actually, if somebody is unable to consume the report by logging in and seeing it, then what are your sort of static publishing options? Are you able to print the report as a multi-page PDF or save it as a PowerPoint? Does it give you any other interesting options?
Yeah, so you get the standard PDF. PowerPoint is not the best integration. It pretty much gives you none of the filterability. It just puts a PDF in a PowerPoint.
Is the PDF then text searchable? Are you able to, does it contain the text as a stream so that you can then just look for things by text, or is it just image?
I think it might just be image.
Okay.
I think it's very static, because obviously they'd want you to log in here so you can, you know, click and move about and stuff like that. But if you just needed, you know, oh, we only need to see 2016, you know, January, for example, you can then.
Yeah, if I was doing a Word document and I put that into the Word document, I paste the image in. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, exactly. And you can PDF just certain with current values or with the default values. You can only export one page at a time or the whole report as well. So it really, you know, helps you narrow down what you see.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think sometimes it's good to contain it within a website, because you try and stop data sprawl as well. So, you know, if you don't want the data, you want to have control on that data, then, you know, obviously people with emails, they can just keep forwarding it on and you don't know where that data is.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. Right. I think probably is that everyone's questions, I think.
Yeah, I think we're done.
Looking at the time.
Still here to wrap up.
People can always follow up and drop me an email, or drop us an email at the GTA if you've got any further questions, which I can forward on to you guys or put you guys in contact. You know, if you think of anything after the session. So okay. So just to say a massive thank you to Jason, Skye and Michael for helping us today with this session. Like, as you already know, there's a course coming up in May. We've sent you, I'll put the link in chat, but equally, you know, if you want to ask me or drop me an email about the course, then please let me know. And as I say, I'll be uploading the recording as well, if I can work out how to stop it. At the end of this session as well, so just keep an eye out for that. So I think that's it, everybody. Okay, thanks ever so much. Thanks for your time, and we'll hopefully see you again soon.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank
Good
you.
to see you. Thanks. Bye.